Hi, friend. It's the holiday season, so Merry Christmas to you and your loved ones. I hope that this season brings so much joy and rest and happiness to you and your family. And I want to add to that joy and that excitement this season by doing a giveaway. Yes, I am giving away 2 cash prizes to my followers and listeners for being so amazing and sticking with me this year. It's been a wonderful experience, and I'm so grateful that you're along with me on this podcast and journey. So this is how you enter the giveaway. Listen to any episode of the podcast and leave a very specific review. Give me feedback on what you thought about that episode. That's it. Just listen to an episode that really resonates with you. I know that you cannot listen to all the episodes, I get it. But pick one that really resonates with you. Listen to it and give me specific feedback. So all you have to do is go to your podcast app, scroll down and click write a review. You leave a rating and then you write a review. And I will be so grateful to hear from you. All right, I know that this is going to be easily done if you're using the Apple Podcast app. But if you don't have the Apple Podcast app, guess what? You can now actually download it even if you have an Android phone. Yes. Now, there are very specific instructions on how to do this. The Apple Podcast app is not available in the Google Play Store. Go figure. So I'm going to leave a link in the show notes to tell you how to install the app on your Android phone. Very simple instructions. So you can install Apple Podcasts on your Android phone, and then you can leave a review. So I'm giving away 2 separate $50 prizes. Right, so 2 people have a chance to win $50 each for the holiday season to spend however you want. But you have to be in the US. I'm sorry to all my listeners around the world. I really, really appreciate you. And I guess we have to figure something out there, but reviews are location specific, and I'm not able to see all reviews that are not from the US right now. Okay, so this is how you enter the giveaway. Download the Apple Podcast. If you don't have it, again, I'll leave a link in the show notes for you to do that, even if you have an Android phone. Then go to the podcast, go to the Driven Introvert podcast, scroll down to where it says write a review, type in your review, and before you click send, take a screenshot of your review and email it to me at thedrivenintrovert@shepacked.com. I'll leave a link in the show notes. And you will be entered to win one of 2 $50 cash prizes for the holiday season. Thank you so much for following and listening to the show. I really, really appreciate it. Now let's get to the episode. Hi friends, Merry Christmas. By the time this episode airs, Christmas would have come and gone. And I hope you had a good time. I hope you prioritized the most important things: family, friends, love, and connection over things, hustle, and whatever else tries to steal our minds and hearts this season. In this episode, I want to invite you to do something you may never have done before. And that is name your fears and get acquainted with them. It sounds counterintuitive, I know. Don't worry, we'll talk about it. I also want to talk about some of my plans for 2025 and invite you to think about yours. I realize that this season can be quite overwhelming if you are an intentional person. It's kind of like the saying, ignorance is bliss. If you don't care what's going on, if you're just living life and coasting or just existing, you're probably going to find it easy. It's fine, whatever, right? But if you're like, I want my life to matter, well, it's very likely that you will feel overwhelmed. So, from one intentional human to another, let's take a collective breath and lean into calm and away from chaos. All will be well by God's grace. Do we agree? All right, cool. Let's get into it. You're listening to the Driven Introvert podcast, the place to be for dreamers, doers, and entrepreneurs who are ready to birth the dreams, callings, and ideas the Lord has placed in their hearts. Do you sense that God is calling you to step out and do something new, but you're held back by fear and uncertainty? Do you struggle with believing that you can do great things because of your quiet, reserved, and introverted nature? Welcome here. I'm Remy Roy, your host and founder of shepacked.com. I'm an author, an entrepreneur, a creative, and a committed trier. I'm here to help you get unstuck and make progress on your God idea. Let's go. So one big thing I'm doing this week as we go into the new year is fear setting. If you've never heard of it, it's kind of like goal setting, but this time you're examining the fears you have about a new season, a decision, a new level you're about to step into. You're not shying away from those fears, but you're really piecing them apart to understand your feelings and emotions about your next steps. I got this concept from Tim Ferriss while reading his book, The 4-Hour Work Week, for a book club session I spoke with a few days ago. It's a great book and I highly recommend it. However, caveat, I want you to read it with an open mind, a mind that believes in possibility. If not, you're probably going to think he's just blowing smoke. Anyway, he talked about the concept of fear setting. The idea is this: anytime you want to take a huge step, and maybe you're hesitant or afraid or unsure, define the fears you're having about that, situation. Really dig deep and think about them. It seems crazy to say you can overcome your fears by paying attention to them. Like, wouldn't that amplify the issue? Maybe even make you feel even more paralyzed because you're so focused on those fears? I don't think so. The truth is that it depends on how you approach this. Most times our fears are exaggerated and may never happen. And even if they do happen, the consequences are seldom fatal or irreversible. So to do the fear setting process, this is what you do. Number 1, you define. List out everything you fear about the idea of taking action on this thing you want to do or entering into a new season or whatever. So 2025, the big things you want to do, the things you're really concerned or maybe even worried about, your career, your family, your children, your health. List out all the fears, everything you fear about that situation. Then number 2, prevent. So number 1 is define, list out everything you fear about taking action. Number 2 is prevent. List ways you could reduce the likelihood of each of the worst case scenarios from happening. And number 3 is repair. List the ways you could repair the damage if worst came to worst. So let's look at this practically. In my case, I have so many things I'm considering for 2025, but I'll just tackle one of them. One of them is I want to go out on a limb and begin to pitch myself for more speaking opportunities. So this feels like a next level for me. This feels like a new season, something new I want to do. These past few months, I've had the opportunity to speak at online conferences, a book club. I'm doing a breakout session at an online event in a few days from now. I'm also speaking at a women's entrepreneur center in a few weeks. Now, these opportunities have opened up my world in a way. And now I know that there's so much that I could do with my voice in speaking and teaching and doing workshops and things like that. Now, I always thought these things will happen much later for me, but I'm grateful to God for it and I really want to lean into it. But I realized I was holding back. Every time I would think about it, I felt like a funny feeling in the pit of my stomach. So when I read about fear setting, I thought, I think I need this for this step that I want to take. I really need this. So I decided to lean into it. So I did number 1, I defined it. I wrote down the fears I had, and there were many, I tell you. There were so many. I think at the first session, I wrote down 10 different fears that I had. And some of it, the rejections I would inevitably experience when I put myself out there. Also wondering if I could actually do it. Sometimes it's like a fear of success. What if I fumble something and make a fool of myself? What if it does work and then I have to spend a lot of time prepping for talks and all of that and not have time to do all the things like maybe even record this podcast, my business, my family, basically the fear of success, like I said. But there were so many fears. So I defined these fears. I wrote them down. I even had some of them come to the fore that maybe they were somehow in my subconscious. I hadn't given myself the freedom of actually pinpointing that, I think I'm afraid of this. I hadn't really done that, right? But it just kept swirling around in my head. So there's so many fears. So I defined these fears. And now I'm working on ways to prevent some of these worst case scenarios and how to bounce back if my worst fears actually happened. So if I do go out there and fumble a talk, right? First, how can I prevent fumbling that talk? Preparation, research, doing the work, spending time, prioritizing excellence over just, I'm just going to go do it, just preparing for it. And if a worst case scenario actually happened where I fumble or talk or I'm rejected over and over and over again from opportunities that I really want, how do I bounce back? I think it's just a forward-looking exercise. So it's not just focusing on the fears because that will drown you, but figuring out I do have the power to be intentional about how I step into this new season. So what can I do to mitigate some of these fears that I have? Like what is within my ability? What is within my power to change, to fix? right? And for me, when I've examined all of this and I've realized, okay, these are my fears, these are the things I can do to prevent them, these are the ways that I can bounce back even if they happen, now I want to trust God with the outcome. Because there are things you can do and there are things you cannot do. There are things that are outside of your control. Now I want to trust God with the things that are outside of my control. But I have to engage and do my best to control the things that I can, to do the things that I'm required to do, the things that fall to me to do. Right? So I challenge you to do this exercise. It forces you to be emotionally aware in a way that really empowers you. You would think that focusing on your fears would demoralize you or make you feel overwhelmed and discouraged, but it did the opposite for me. I hope you try it. So let's say you really want financial security in 2025 and you know that changing your career or job is the next step for you, but you are overwhelmed by that decision. Fear setting will help you bring those fears to the fore and out of your head so you can address them. Sometimes just having the thoughts going around in your head, it's one of the things that actually demoralizes you. But if you write it down, it's like you're shining a light into the darkness and you're no more afraid of that monster on that bed, right? It's out in the light and you can see it for what it is. The next step in the process is to consider what are the potential benefits of taking action, right? So after you've defined your fears about whatever career pivot you want to do, you thought about, okay, how can I mitigate those fears? How can I prevent them from happening, right? So maybe in your case, you're thinking, it's going to be a lot for me to be able to sit down and do all of this job search. It feels overwhelming. Or maybe you have to go back to school or take a course or whatever, and you're afraid, can you do it? Are you able to take this huge step in your life? How can you prevent whatever fears that you have of happening, right? Part of it might be just finding somebody to be accountable to. Part of it might be just praying about it, taking time to give things to God that you know that you cannot do and doing your part, just really stepping out and putting yourself out there and doing interviews and connecting and doing all of those things, right? And then if your fear is, you're going to get rejected and all of that, preparing for that so that when it happens, you know that it's not the end of the world. So I think it's good to actually pay attention to this fear so we can figure out how can we move forward so we're not just constantly overwhelmed and not taking any action, paralysis, so to speak, because you're not able to move, right? So when you do all of this, the next step in the process is to consider the potential benefits of taking action. What good could happen if you actually take a step of faith and started planning a career pivot, as scary as it sounds? Like, think of the possibilities. You could expand your network. You can get a new position. You can increase your income. You have more stability. You're able to provide for your family more. These are all the good things that can come from taking action. Give yourself space to be open and consider what might go right for you if you do take action. And Tim Ferriss says to write down all the positive benefits of even an attempt or partial success at taking action. For me, it's really putting myself out there to do more speaking opportunities, right? What good could come out of that? I would definitely expand my network. I'll be able to be more fulfilled knowing that I can reach more people. I can encourage more people, inspire more people, equip more people to go do the things that God is calling them to do. Right? And if I do happen to have speaking opportunities that are paid, guess what? I also increase my income. So there's so much benefit from taking action. Whatever the positive thing you're thinking of doing is, there is a lot of benefit from taking action. And then finally, consider the consequences of inaction. I think this is something that we gloss over sometimes. What if you did not do the thing that you're thinking about doing? The thing that you're excited to do in this season, but because of fear, you're letting it hold you back. I'm reading a book right now, The Next Right Thing by Emily P. Freeman, and she actually has a chapter in there that is basically fear setting. She didn't use those words, but that is exactly what she's talking about. Like really shining the light on the things that are holding you back. If it's fear, you want to get rid of that, right? So imagine that you stayed where you are. You decided not to take any steps. What would happen? I don't know your situation, but I can guarantee that things will stay the same. Things will stay the same. Whatever feelings of stuckness or overwhelm you feel right now, it will probably still be there 1 year or 5 years from now if you do nothing about it. If nothing changes, nothing changes. So this is such a powerful exercise. I'm doing it for the major decisions I'm thinking of making, and most of them are career related. Go figure, right? So That's fear setting, right? Number one, define the fears you're having about that situation. Number two, what can you do to prevent those fears from happening? And number three, list the ways you could repair the damage if worst came to worst, right? And then two other things you want to think about. What are the potential benefits of taking action? What good could come out of taking that action? And then consider the consequences of inaction. If you don't move, if you don't change, if you don't do the thing, if you don't step out, what will happen? So think about that. And I hope it really encourages you as you go into 2025 to know that so much is possible for you, but you have to be engaged in the process of your own progress. You cannot outsource this part of your life to anyone else. You have to do it. You have to face it, face those fears, and trust God with the outcome. All right, so that's fear setting. There's a workbook for this exercise, and I'll leave the link in the show notes so you can check it out. If you do it, I really hope you do it. If you do it, please share your thoughts with me. You can send me an email at thedrivenintrovert@shepark.com. You can message me on Instagram, or you can just leave a review or feedback and let me know what you did. So be bold. Be courageous in your pursuit of whatever it is God has placed in your heart for this new year. This is a great time to reflect and make intentional decisions. But whatever you do, trust God. Do your best, but trust Him with the outcome. Trust His plans for your life. Proverbs 3 verses 5-6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." Friend, I wish you all the best as we go into the new year. I love you and I'm rooting for you. Have a wonderful New Year's, and I'll see you on the other side. And next episode, I'll be sharing some intentional ways for driven introverts like you and I, like us, to start a new year without overwhelm. Look out for that. I'll see you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoy this conversation, please take a moment to follow or subscribe to the podcast. I'd also love your feedback on this episode. You can scroll down on your app and click write a review. I'd love to read your takeaways from this conversation. As always, don't forget to take courage, trust God, and go pursue your big ideas. See you next time. The Driven Introvert is produced by shepark.com and Remy Roy. Want to ask a question or share a comment on a future episode? Click on the link in the show notes to record your question in a voicemail.